Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have yellow thunderstorm warnings issued for tomorrow for northern and eastern parts of England into Scotland, as well as we could see some really active thunderstorms engage along a cold front that is sweeping in. We also will have a look at the UKV and look at the WRF to look at that thunderstorm risk, and of course look at the temperatures as well, because ahead of that cold front it's going to be a very hot day in the east, perhaps 32 or 33 degrees at the top temperature, high humidity, feeling really oppressive out there. Now luckily, as we see on the longer range from the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the ensembles, things are going to be turning much cooler as we head into next week. Not cold, but towards average for the time of year, with less oppressive air mass moving in and things just generally being a little bit more towards normal. There will be more precipitation as well, again less likely to be thunderstorms with less sort of hot humid air, less instability around, but there will still be plenty of showers and potentially some frontal areas of rainfall, so back towards more average summery conditions, nothing too hot, but there still is the risk as we do head into July for southerly winds to return, so we'll have to see what that longer range does entail. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. First I do want to say, I just apologise for the voice today, unfortunately got a little bit of a cold or some sort of virus, so my throat is a little bit sore, so a little bit of a croaky voice, so apologise for that, but hopefully still be able to get through this video with ease. Now, as I said, we'll look at the thunderstorm risk throughout the next sort of 24 hours. I did say yesterday and the day before that we'd have a look at the Arome run. Now, unfortunately, the Arome run is one of the best sort of short-range models, and we've had a look at it in a lot of detail over the last few weeks when we've looked at the big thunderstorm risk, especially when we've had amber warnings issued. But unfortunately, the Arome run is a French regional model, and it only extends to sort of the Midlands into southern parts of northern England, and the biggest risk of thunderstorms tomorrow is actually much further northward. So unfortunately, we won't be able to have a look at the Arome run. It's frustrating, but it gets cut off really across parts of Yorkshire, so we can't see the main risk, which is across parts of northeast England into eastern Scotland. But as I said, we'll continue to look at the UKV and the WRF here. So to start on the live radar, it's a pretty dry day today, but there is patchy cloud around and it's quite humid and oppressive out there. So temperatures rising, perhaps as high as the high 20s in some regions, but because of that thicker cloud in places, it's stopping those temperatures really climbing. A few showers in the west, and again signs that something more unsettled is moving in from the west. Now, recording this around 3:30, and you can see the 2-meter temperatures are pretty hot, widely hot in most regions. Again, getting up towards the mid to high 20s, so pretty warm, pretty hot conditions, and again, really pleasant for those who enjoy hot weather, but equally oppressive for those who do struggle in the heat. And as I said, luckily, it is going to be moving away in the coming days. Now, if we go over the weather warnings, we do have a thunderstorm warning, as I said, issued for eastern parts from 1 PM tomorrow until 9 PM. Again, mainly for East Midlands, northeast England into eastern and northeastern Scotland. Again, there could be thunderstorms further westwards, but this is where we're expecting the cold front and all the instability associated with that to engage with the hot and humid air. That's through this eastern portion. But further westwards, we'll still see heavy rain, potentially torrential rain, and thunderstorms developing here, but they'll be really at their peak through these eastern regions. There's even a risk, actually, that thunderstorms take off in these regions, but most active offshore. So that would be sort of an optimal scenario to reduce disruption. But as I said, thunderstorms developing across northern England and Scotland may cause disruption and localised flooding on Sunday afternoon and the evening. It's a high impact, low likelihood, but it's looking highly likely to take off. But it's the where it takes off is the issue with the likelihood. So I do suspect we probably will see an amber warning issued. From what I'm seeing in the latest model data, I do expect an amber warning to be issued perhaps tomorrow. But at this stage, can't call anything as the models could move around. So you can see there is some uncertainty in whether thunderstorms develop as cooler conditions follow from the west, but there's the chance that an organised line of thunderstorms, so again a line convection, squall line, whatever you want to call it, could develop across northern Britain during Sunday afternoon, before clearing east into the North Sea during the evening. This is more likely to happen across eastern parts of the warning area, including northeast England, eastern Scotland, and rainfall amounts may vary significantly, but local spots, some localised spots could reach 30 to 40 millimetres in a couple hours. Frequent lightning, large hail, and strong gusty winds will be additional hazards. So emphasising there the risk of large hail, and again that's because of the cold front. We could see some really strong updrafts here, see really high cloud tops, and that allows more hail to develop. Of course, the higher you go up, the colder the conditions, and the longer lasting the hail will be with the stronger updraft, and the bigger it will get. So big risk here of that. So again, not pop-up storms. This is a different type of thunderstorm development here. Line convection, sort of American pattern I said over the past few days, where we do see cool air engaging with hot and humid air, but we'll just have to see how it does develop. Not a usual pattern we see in the UK, but it could be very lively indeed. Now, if you look at the UKV now, sorry, I haven't got it loaded up. So yeah, if we have a look at the UKV now, you can see that over the coming hours this afternoon, not got too much going on. A few areas of patchy rain in the west, but really nothing going on. As we head to the overnight hours, you can start to see the cold front engaging in from the west, some heavy thundery rain perhaps in here, but no risk of major thunderstorms yet. It's really during Sunday afternoon it engages with that significant area of hot and humid air into thunderstorms in the east, and the UKV has thunderstorms breaking out, but not quite in as much of a line as it was showing yesterday, with the line forming more out into the North Sea. So as I said, this could show the risk of the most severe thunderstorms, the most severe impacts offshore during Sunday afternoon. And it's very progressive with what it does here, reducing that thunderstorm impacts by around 5 or 6 p.m. So we'll have to see how this develops. But the UKV definitely perhaps reducing the impacts from this, not warranting an amber warning, definitely from this UKV run. But it is changing very quickly, so we'll have to see what the next few runs do hold for that. But as we head into the upcoming working week, you can see some showers around, but not as heavy because it's cooler air, less energy around. And we could see areas of rain and cloud, a typical westerly pattern. There will be areas of sunshine, areas of dry conditions, but equally plenty of thick cloud, plenty of light to moderate rain. And again, look at the upper air temperatures. There will be a brief warm sector through Tuesday, could get those temperatures back into the mid-20s for some, but generally we're in average air mass around the mid-single digits at 850 HPA. Again, would equate to temperatures around that 20 or low 20 degree mark for many. If you look at the max temperatures, again through this afternoon, you see temperatures rising to 25 to 27 degrees, so really warm today and hot and humid. Again, the dew points are very high, again mid to high teens. Again, doesn't sound ridiculously high, but for the UK that is very high dew points. We'd say ridiculously oppressive dew points for the UK would be 20 degrees and above, so we are close, but not quite ridiculous points. And you can see to Sunday, again, some hot and humid air ahead of the weather front, and that's dew points around 18 degrees across northeast England. Again, engaging with that cold front. If you look at the temperatures into Sunday, though, you can see them really rising during the afternoon. 31, 32 degrees is likely, perhaps as high as 33 degrees locally, depending on how quickly some cloud and rain moves in. Again, we're not expecting East Anglia or South East England to see much rain, but it will see cool air move in with a period of cloudier conditions, most likely over sort of the late evening hours. And you can see by the morning, temperatures down towards the low 20s by the afternoon. Still could hang on to maybe a 24 or 25 in the far southeast, but most areas high teens, low 20s. Into Tuesday, could see briefly warmer air move in, not particularly coinciding with daylight hours here, so it's actually overnight hours are much warmer. Look at that, 17, 18 degrees. And Wednesday afternoon still could be 23 or 24, so that warmer sector not coinciding with daylight hours like it was in yesterday's run, where it did produce 26, 27. So again, it will mean slightly more oppressive conditions overnight, but in the day not getting much higher than the low 20s. So you can see the upcoming conditions are not going to be cold, they're not going to be particularly hot either, just generally going to be average, warmer in the south and the east, cooler in the north and the west, a typical westerly pattern. If you look at the WRF, just to keep up to date with that thunderstorm risk tomorrow, we've got a lot of caper out at the moment, but we've not really got anything to take off with that convection. It's quite a stable air mass right now. We haven't got that cold front to provide that lift. So yeah, large amount of caper out at the moment. Could see the odd thunderstorm break out, but we've not got any trigger for that thundery activity. But tomorrow, with that cold front sweeping in with higher levels of cape in the east, That's where we could see thunderstorms taking off in these regions. You'll be able to see in the upcoming week, Cape does reduce quite significantly, a few pockets here or there, again indicating lack of energy from a westerly air mass, because the air mass is quite a bit colder, out down towards sort of 5 degrees at 850 HPA. Again, doesn't sound like a huge difference from sort of the 14, 15 degree air mass we have at the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a very large difference, both in surface temperatures and in the energy available to convection. If you look at the precipitation here, you can see minimal precipitation over the next sort of 12 hours or so, but by the time it gets to tomorrow afternoon, the cold front engages with that Cape and the hot humid air, and we see that big line convection potentially take off, and then once again here forming over land, but really organising into a large band of precipitation out into the North Sea. We'll have to keep a very close eye on this as it does develop tomorrow, again with its timings. Whether it does fully develop over land, that would increase the impacts and the widespread nature of the impacts, or whether it starts to develop over land but only fully forms into a proper score line or area of line convection as it heads out into the North Sea. And then as we head into the next upcoming week, there will be showers around, but not expecting them to be anywhere near as heavy as we've had recently. So do now look at the longer range. Things are going to be turning cooler and more unsettled. If we do run through the GFS, again, the westerly flow coming in over the next few days. Could be quite deep low pressure system out to our north and west, but it's unlikely to sit right over the top of us until perhaps next weekend, we see low pressure sit near or close by. Again, not too deep, so perhaps not strong winds or anything like that, but generally unsettled conditions, cloud and cooler conditions with the air mass coming in from the north or northwest, and that continues all the way to 384 hours, where we could see high pressure build in and the air mass start to warm up, but still nothing too crazy. We still have to watch to our south, very hot areas still to our south and our east, so if we did see a brief change in wind direction, it would get very hot. But at the moment, we're not seeing that. And if you look at the temperature deviation, we're generally around average, hovering above, or probably more likely below from this latest GFS run. Again, if we look at the precipitation, accumulated precipitation from this, UK quite high at 384 hours, a huge contrast than if we were looking at this chart a couple of weeks ago, where we had very minimal precipitation. So everything's flipped on its head, and it's looking likely all areas of the British Isles are going to see moderate to high amounts of rainfall. Again, showing here maybe 50 millimetres quite widely. Again, a couple of inches of rain, nothing too crazy. Again, we can see that in 3 to 5 hours with some big severe thunderstorms over a 2-week spread. It's not that severe, but again, it is a lot more than what we've seen recently, sort of widely compared to what we've had at the moment. If you look at the GM, again, westerly flow coming in over the coming days, quite unsettled. Initially, the deep low pressure systems stay out to our north and west, but could sit over the top of us as we head towards next weekend, bringing us much more unsettled and cooler conditions with that air mass spiralling in from the northwest. Again, it doesn't look cold, but for the time of year, it is slightly below average, and we'll just have to see exactly what the 2-metre temperatures do entail with that. Look at the eastern WF, see how similar that is. Again, a westerly flow coming in, low pressure starting to dominate, but mainly out to our north and west initially, before sitting over the top of us. A bit more to our north here, so perhaps the south getting a bit more respite, slightly warmer air mass here, so it could mean the far south stays a bit drier, stays a bit warmer, but overall the pattern is a little, still cooler and more unsettled. If you look at the temperature deviation, still generally cooler in the north. And again, look at the humid precipitation, still quite a lot of rainfall around. Not quite as much in the south, though. Interesting there. So again, subtle shifts in positioning of high pressure, low pressure could make a huge difference for small regions around the British Isles. If we do finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see very hot air mass the next day or two. Big drop, and then we see that brief warm spell for maybe 24 hours. But again, the UKV had that coinciding with overnight hours, so not really making too much of a difference to the daylight temperatures, other than keeping it pretty warm overnight and oppressive. And then generally in the long term, we're around average, slightly above at times, but more likely below average, with quite high precipitation as well through the last days of June and early July. So instead, looking much more towards average, perhaps even trending slightly below average, with quite a bit more precipitation around. Again, we're not expecting anything ridiculous in terms of rainfall, but there will definitely be frontal systems in the north and west, and definitely widespread areas of showers. Perhaps could be heavy at times, but mostly light to moderate. Again, the 2-metre temperatures are not going to be anything too special. down towards 20, 22 degrees for London, which is generally average for the time of year. And look at those overnight temperatures down towards perhaps 15 degrees or lower, which is much more suitable and perhaps even lower than that on some of these runs, which would be much more pleasant than sort of the high teens we've been seeing recently. And again, 5-degree difference is not that much when it comes to sort of numerical value, but in feel-like temperature and what it actually does to the body, 5 degrees is a huge, huge difference. And if you just look at the dew point as well, you can see the oppressiveness is going to reduce. 15-degree dew points at the moment. Could see a brief rise to something a bit more humid in the middle of the week, and that's why it could be a little bit oppressive on Tuesday, especially overnight hours, if that same sort of pattern on the UKV does hold. But beyond that, dew points down toward 10 degrees, and again, only a 5-degree difference, but it makes all load of difference to the humidity and to the feel-like temperature. And if you do just finish by comparing it to the ECMWF, just to make sure the GFS is not being an outlier, and it's not here. Upper air temperatures are well above average at the moment, drop to average or below average through Monday, briefly above average through Tuesday, and then generally around average, slightly above, slightly below, all the way to early July, and with quite considerably higher precipitation as well. And again, it's always going to be higher in the north and west. London is always going to be furthest away from the precipitation, just from looking at the positioning of the low pressure systems. So generally back towards average temperatures, low 20s for the southeast, probably more high teens, further northwards, higher precipitation around, which many gardeners and people involved in agriculture will probably enjoy. It's been pretty dry recently, apart from the thunderstorms we have had, but again, they've been reasonably localised. So good to see a bit more widespread rainfall coming. But those who have enjoyed some summery conditions, sort of bordering, or well, technically heatwave conditions for many at times. If you have enjoyed those sort of conditions, unfortunately it will be changing, but if you have not enjoyed those conditions, found it a bit too oppressive, a bit too hot and humid out, things will be getting much fresher, and not just getting fresher for a day or two, perhaps being much fresher for a week or longer. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you have enjoyed. If you do enjoy that hot and humid weather, do enjoy the next couple of days. If you don't enjoy it, well, you're looking forward to Monday when all regions will be in something cooler. But as I said, thanks for watching. Do make sure you do stay safe this weekend. It's going to be hot, and there are going to be thunderstorms in the north. As I said, just make sure you do take care of yourself, and I'll see you again for another video soon.